Alright, Eric Owens back here at you, and we're going to paint this guy. Got him finished carving yesterday. I finished up the class, part number 4 of the Cowboy Caricature bottle stopper, and now here we are with the final piece. I'm going to get him really wet first before I do anything, mainly because I want to be able to make sure I can control where all the color's going. So I'm just going to take a brush. I'm not gonna spray because I don't want too much water on him. I don't want it to be so soaked that I can't paint it. But anyway, we're gonna get him wet so that way the water, so the colors will flow in together, which is my goal on some of this stuff. I want some of that water to mix with the other water, and I want that water to flow and carry the colors too. Now, we've carved it. This is out of basswood. We've carved him. It took a few hours to do it. I think somewhere close to about 8 hours when we spread it all out and do all the things we do with it. And when I was done, I took it out into the shop, and as I've shown you before, my little Scotch-Brite setup that I use a mandrel with some Scotch-Brite pieces on it. So I take those and cut them up into about 1.5 inch pieces. And I pile 3 of them on there, sometimes 2, and I use that to take care of fuzzies and odd spots and marks that I've left that are stray marks on there. And that allows me to go in there and clean it up. Now there's obviously some, it won't get everywhere because you can't get down in the ears with those round things moving at 2,500 RPMs or whatever they're doing, but it's kind of difficult to chase all day all those fuzzies, because I mean, you can certainly do that. Feel free to do that if you want. They'll take you a while, and I'm getting a little bit impatient. I don't want to take that long, and so I am going to continue using that apparatus that I have. It works for me. I'm not telling you to use it, I'm not telling you not to use it. I'm simply saying that's what I use to finish off the end of my carving, into the carving part. And it gives me a chance to see some areas where there might be a fuzzy or something. I think I got one right in there, and I'll pull out a knife here in just a little bit, or maybe some water will smooth it down. And that's where I want to start it. I was originally going to give him a 5 o'clock shadow, and when I do that, this is the device that I use. I found a engraver, and this one, I don't know how old this thing is, but it looks like it came over on the ark. And that's what it is, and I turn it on and it goes different speeds. It's really loud, and you got to be careful with it because that'll hurt your ears. But anyway, I just use it when I turn it on, and I just go in here and dab that all over the face. And what it does is it makes marks, and those marks, as long as I don't wet it down too much, those marks end up being exactly what the approximation of what I'm doing. It looks like a 5 o'clock shadow, and then by the time you paint it with a certain paint that I'll talk about later, maybe, and you get what you're looking for. So I'm going to start off with some refined linseed oil. That's what I do with all my carvings anymore. I don't use boiled linseed oil. I use the refined stuff. It's supposed to dry faster. It's also supposed to give you a more consistent color, and I like that yellow color than I do from the orange color from the boiled linseed oil. I know there's a lot of people that like it and they make it work. I like this. It works for me, and this is what I'm going to start with. I always put that on first because I want to give it some time to soak in before I really get to painting. So if I let it soak in the face, and by the time I've got the hair and everything else done, I'm going to come back and the color will have set in there, the oil will have set in there, and it will give me, by the time I mix it with the flesh colors that I use, it'll give me a good round overall good look. So this is using this refined linseed oil here to hit all open skin. So neck, underneath the jaw, the back, underneath the ears, behind the ears, in the nose, out the nose, eyes, and whatever. I even paint over the eyes with these because I want there to be the same kind of tone. And if I start with the base tone of this, it gives me a nice little yellow color. And it'll start to set up and finish in the wood before I get around to it and get to that point. But I just want to put that color in there. Make sure you use, anytime you use any type of oil, it has the tendency to want to spontaneously combust. I don't know if this refined stuff does. I've never had any stuff spontaneous combust on me at all. So I'm not going to worry too much about it, although it is a concern. In the wintertime, and not so much because I just don't think it'll do that flash stuff. It'll flash and burn. And I throw all my stuff away when I'm done with it. I want a black hat and I want a dark gray trim. So I've got soft black here, and I've got let's call it gray storm. There it is right there. So I'm going to paint the hat black. And if you've watched me paint, you know that I water my stuff down quite a bit. So I don't want a lot of harsh, straight paint on there. Some time ago, Deco Art changed the mixture of their soft black, and lately it looks like it's almost purple. Really, 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 really dark, watered down purple. I'm hoping that was just the one bottle that I had. I switched to another bottle. I haven't used it yet, and I'm hoping this will give me what I need. But I'm going to mix that up with some water pretty heavily. I don't know, 5 to 10 drops for every drop of paint. And let's get it mixed up there a little bit. Here's an old wore out brush that I use for that. Pardon me, my voice is sounding a little bit hoarse today. I'm substituting teaching lately, and yesterday was a particular busy day, kind of rough too. I had some kids that didn't want to do what they're supposed to, and so they got in trouble and they didn't like it. And I figured, well, my job is to come in here and be the babysitter, and their job is to be the baby. So somebody got to handle it sometimes, and that was my job yesterday. So I talked a little bit more than I really wanted to. See how that water flows? That paint. I don't know about you. I don't know if you can see that, but boy, that's got maybe I need to get thicker. Yeah, it's a little bit better. Anyway, it's got like a real dark purple to it, and I don't know where somebody tossed something in the wrong batch of paint and they didn't catch it before they bottled it. I'm going to go all the way around this brush. I probably ought to get a bigger brush than that. It'll take me all day with that one. I'm going to go around with a good round brush that I want that'll hold a lot of paint. So get it wet first, charge up the brush hairs. I can tell with this black I'm going to have to, it looks black in the camera, but it doesn't really look black to my eyes. So maybe I just had a doctor's appointment on my eyes. Maybe I need to go back here and get them done again, because I'm seeing a color I don't really like. And I don't worry if I splash it up here a little bit like that, up on where the gray is going to go. The paint will be thick enough to cover, and I think it'll do what I want it to do. But maybe what I need to do is to get the color I want, I'll just paint it heavily and paint a lot of it, and then we'll come back and add some dry brush highlights to it, and we'll get that thing figured out. We'll get it. It's alright. We'll get it. We always do, don't we? Trying to get up under that rolled brim, which we rolled it pretty heavily. Wanted it to look like a kind of a modern cowboy, because they roll their brims more than I've seen in the old pictures, because nowadays it's about the look, and then it was more about the protection. So flat brim, from what I can tell, or really a small low roll, seemed to be more popular, I think, because they wanted to protect their skin and protect their eyeballs. And what do I know? I'm just a guy just having fun with carving. So I like the way it looks. That's what I'm going to go with. If you like it different, you go the way you want to go. It's your carving. It's not mine, and I'm not here to judge you. Speaking of judging, we had our show here a couple weeks ago, and judging's always a problem, because you got judges that you can't get them every year. You can get them every other year. sometimes you try out new ones. This year we had some really new ones. I mean, they're not new to us in terms of knowing who they are. Mary Dame and Susan Hendricks came up from Utah, and they were judging. And we had Bob Goff from the Tri-Cities Wood Carving Club up in Kennewick, Washington. And I've known Bob for 15 years. We're good friends, and I took a class from Susan, and I'd never met Mary before, but it was a good experience. I think they enjoyed coming up here and doing that for us. We enjoyed having them. It gave us a chance to get a break from some of the older long-term judges that we had been using. I think they kind of get tired of being asked all the time, but it's getting to the point where I don't really like entering competitions. I don't like judging competitions. I don't like being judged by competitions, because at the very basic, it comes down to one person's opinion on that particular day. If they saw that carving on another day, they might give it a whole different carving or a whole different ribbon. But I look at it like this: if I win a ribbon, somebody else in the show didn't win that ribbon. And if I didn't win it, I'm glad somebody else did. But when I judge, I don't want to be critical. I guess I don't want to talk about somebody's carving, whether good or bad or whatever. I will gladly give advice. But again, you got to understand that is just my opinion. It is not necessarily the God's awful truth. It is just my opinion on that day. And so you take that for what it's worth. I'm going to go ahead and paint the gray in here. I'm going to use that gray a little bit later on the underpinning of the hair, but I want this gray here because I want it to just kind of flow. So what I mean by flow is I don't want one solid blocky color. I want it to be variations, variegated, I think is the word. I substituted yesterday in a biology class, and they were talking about variations in species as they evolve over time, and I remembered that word variation when I took biology in college. It just means the differentiation of species, how they change over time. And so teaching that to kids, you know, you've got big vocabulary words that you're using, and sometimes they don't understand those, and they didn't do the work from the day before, and so they don't understand the vocabulary. So there's that head painted, or the hat painted. We got black on it. We got gray on it. I'm going to put in my hair dryer for just a few seconds because I want to dry it, and I want to keep painting, because I don't want to have this particular episode drag on forever. And I'll be switched if I don't have a place to plug this thing in here. I'll have to fiddle around a minute. Give me a second or two, and I'll figure out how to do this. Unplug this, plug that in. Sometimes I think I don't have enough plug-ins, but there's 8 of them in this room, so that ought to be enough. There we go. I kicked the camera, so maybe it might be a little adjust in there. Alright, been about 15 seconds. I'm going to turn this on. You want to turn the sound down because this is awful loud, so here we go. Go with him. Get this wire out of the way. We're ready to go with him. Come on, work with me. There you go. We're ready to work with him. I'm going to figure out what kind of hair he wants, and I think he wants, I'm listening to him. I think I'm going to put a mixture of this black and gray over here. Equal dabs of either one, because I want the underlined hair to be dark. And so I'm going to take a little brush. I don't need a big one in there. I just need to get up under there. And I'm going to do it on his sideburns here. It's a little bit darker than the hat. This is the piece that I used in my carving the Caricature Cowboy bottle stopper. And I said I was going to finish this up. We didn't paint it in the, got a little dab of paint right there. Let's see if we can get that off of there. It's a good thing about acrylic paints. You can kind of scrub it off sometimes. Sometimes you can't. Let me hang on just a second. Reach across here. Trying to reach and get a blade, and it ain't wanting to work with me. Don't want to come out of there, so I'll try it again. Here we go. I look like an idiot. I don't seem like I know what I'm doing, but I really do. Just not today. So like I was saying, with these acrylic paints, you don't have a lot of pigment when you water them down like I do. And so it gives me an opportunity. I'm going to go right in here to the top of that ear. I don't know if you can see that. I'm looking right there. That little black spot right there. And if I do it right, I can take a little bit of that off there. A little bit off there. And because I haven't painted the ear, I don't have to worry about it. So I think turn the camera up here. Come on now. I think I got him cleared off there. I think that ear is better than it was. Alright. We're keeping on with this dark hair. And I wanted this guy originally when I made him, I was going to make him look really old. Then I decided, you know what? He didn't turn out that way. He didn't tell me he was old, so I just ran with it. And I didn't put a lot of wrinkles, except where wrinkles really belong. So on some people I've seen carvings and sculptures where they add, just a whole lot of wrinkles everywhere. And I think that has a place and a time, and this wasn't it for me today. We're just going to make him just some great big old sideburns. We got the back of his head painted in, missed the spot there. We want a little bit right up here at the eyebrow. I'm just going to slightly drag it across. I don't want them real thick, and I don't want them real dark, and I don't want them real deep, and I want them to come across his head, just like that. Let me turn that a little bit. So he's got some eyebrows in there too. So that's what I wanted to do with him. All right, I got some more paint laying here too. I want to take some flesh paint. And I want to take some dark flesh, or shading flesh. Part of the problem with this is they're about every 3 or 4 years, these paint manufacturers get a different mix and call it something else. And so I tried to find flesh back when I was demonstrating at our meeting one night. Couldn't find some. And I wanted to get some extras so students could use that, and then I wanted plenty so we wouldn't run out. And by gosh, if I couldn't find it. I can find warm beige, and I can find terracotta, and I can find primrose, but I could not find flesh. So maybe if I'd have looked in another brand, might have been able to. But by the time I looked in 3 or 4 stores and 4 or 5 brands, I got tired of looking. I said, heck with it. We're gonna figure it out. The ingenuity of what you got to do when you can't do what you want to do. If you'll notice, I go from one well to the other. I want these colors to be similar in tone, but not in the same shade. And if you look at it, this one's lighter than that one, but they have similar colors to each other. And so I'm just going to I keep getting calls from everybody today, and I don't know why. Anyway, I'm going to go back again, and I'm going to take a little bit of water in that face, just a little bit. I don't want a whole lot. I just want to wet some areas because maybe the flow has gone out of them. But 1 or 2 brushes of water, and you just rake it over there and get some water on there, so that it'll help. By the time you give it a couple seconds, it will help and help that wood dry. I forgot to get out a red. I better get out a red on it just a little bit for a splash of it. Alright, going back to that same brush I was using. Actually, I'm going to get a little bit smaller one because that might be a little big. Where are you? If you're like me, you get to the point where you have brushes you really enjoy using. And sometimes I don't put them back in the same spot I wanted to. This one will work perfectly. That's a little round brush, so charge it up, get it wet. And then I'm going to start with this. I want to cover the whole thing with this earlier color, the first color that I got. If you'll notice, there ain't much to it. but you can see a little tone on the skin wherever we're at. Splash a little bit up on that hat, so I gotta wipe that off. Anyway, I'm gonna cover the face with all of this, and I'm not gonna worry about the fact that I've already painted. I'm gonna go right over that because that earlier paint was dark, and so it'll kind of tone down a little bit this, and it'll pick up a little bit of that color. Okay. And I don't want to dry this as soon as I'm done. I want to wait just a few seconds, and then I'm going to go back over it with the next color I got. If you notice that we're gonna highlight these eyebrows, and we're gonna give them some dry brushing on them. But we've got, let's see if you can see it better if I put some light on it. That might be too much. That might not be enough. And we'll do it that way. Pull it away a little bit. You know what? Yeah, that'll work. And I'm going to go back here in this other color, and I want to hit the highlights. I want to spread that around, feather it out. Don't have harsh lines where you got the color in one spot and then as it transitions to another. Make sure that there's places like in the ear. You want to make that a little bit darker. Behind the ear, top of the ears. He spends a little bit of time without his hat, but not much. Always got that hat on. A little bit under the chin. We'll come up here and just feather some of that out. So if you get a really hard line like that, just take it, paint back out of your brush and just feather it out. You'll get that color. You'll spread it out, and you won't have that really dark splash of color there. You'll have it all over the place. If it's too much, go dip into water, come back here and scrub it off. And you'll get there shortly, bit by bit, where you get where you want to go. And so I didn't do anything around the eyes, so I'll put that there. Up here around the forehead, all the places where where it looks like it's darker. And then I'm going to take my tomato red. It's the one I use for a lot of details, especially flesh details. And I just want a skimp of that. That stuff in there is almost dry, so my brush has got a little bit of water to it, so I'm going to put that down here. And we get all that paint off that I can. I only need a drop, but I need a drop of the right consistency. So when I go in here and do that, I want to add just a little bit of water and just a little bit of this, because I want these colors to come together. I want them to be similar in tone, but not similar in hue, I guess, what I'm looking for. Forgetting my artistic terms. Watch what happens to that nose. Just a little bit. It gives it a pink color, a pink tone. Feather that out on the cheeks. Give him some red cheeks. He spent some time in the sun, so he's got some red cheeks. And get into that darker red for his lips. So I don't need much, but I need a little more than that. That ain't enough. No, maybe it is. Maybe by the time I feather it out, it'll be okay. Okay. In other words, take away the harsh lines and make it kind of spread all over. So we'll have a hint of red right around in here. We'll have a darker red right around in here, and then we'll spread a little bit more out just randomly throughout the face. I want to get a little bit into those ears, because I don't want all the skin to look the same color. I've seen a lot of painters, a lot of carvers. They'll go to paint a good carving, and they'll have all the hair one color, all the face one color. And I'm just going, well, that might work, but it usually doesn't. So you got to be careful of that. Okay, another jolt of electricity from the hairdryer. We want that face dry before we get done with it. I usually do dry brushing when I'm done with the whole carving, and I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to save the dry brush a little bit later. What I use for dry brush, let me get my paints out of the way. I use a paint called buttermilk. There's a light buttermilk and a regular buttermilk. I don't know that I know the difference. Sorry, I'm off the camera. I don't know that I know the difference between light buttermilk and regular buttermilk, but usually I take just a skip of that and I just skip all over the hair. and hat and things like that, shirts, whatever they got. He's got a little booger hanging off his nose right there. We'll clean that off. But anyway, I usually don't do that until the end when I'm completely done. I don't do the face very often. I will do the eyebrows, but I don't usually do the face. So what I want to do first, before I do that, I got the dark there. I'm going to go back with just a little bit of light gray. This is slate gray, so it's a lighter gray than that gray storm I used earlier. You can see the differences in the colors there. I'm going to dry brush a little bit. Let me see if I can just get a little bit there. I want to get it on my brush, dab it in that brush, and then I'm going to wipe it off. Most of it. I'm going to get it to where I got about 90% of it off of there. It might be a little more. It might be 92.5. It might be 95. I don't know. But if the lines run this way, I want to go across them. Because that way going across, it'll pick it up and it won't get in them grooves and make it look funky. Okay. I'm going to do the back too. And then I should still have enough left in there to do the eyebrows. Once, twice. Okay. It's enough of that. I don't need any more. Now, come to the hard part. For most of us do not like painting eyes. We absolutely hate it because we always screw it up. Here's part of it too. We get the feeling and we get to thinking every one of these eyes have to be the exact same, one to the other. And I'm here to tell you that is not necessary. I'm going to get a little more light on him here. That is not necessary to have eyes that are exactly the same. So what I like to do, I picked up this trick from Pat Moore. She uses these eyeliner brushes. Ladies, you'll know what these are if you use that kind of stuff. They're the tiny little, I think they're nylon bristles. Lay that over here so I'll protect it. Tiny little nylon bristles. There ain't much to them. I mean, they're just, is it too light? Might be too light there. See those little liner brushes? They're real stiff. And so you got to break that mold, so I get them wet. Dab it and then soften it up with my fingers. That spreads them out a little bit, but it also gives you about the pointedest thing I've ever seen for painting. You can't get much pointier than that. That is what I do the eyeballs. And so I'm going to do eyeballs. And here's the other thing. You don't have to use white. You might use a buttermilk. Like he's aged and his eyes are getting a little bit rheumy. Is that what they call it? R-H-E-U-M-Y. And I've got this lid is so dry I can't hardly get paint. So I'm going to have to get me a little dipper here. And just dip a little bit of that out of there and put a dab of it there. Because this, I don't know if you can see this bottle is just about done. All this stuff up here is dried out. So I'm going to go down in here. I want to get a little bit on there and I want to put it off into that well all by itself. Now, I don't like to water that down. I like white to go straight on. And so I'm going to do it first and see what it looks like. But I got to be real careful because I've got a lot of lines in here and I got to know exactly where the eye is. So in this guy right here, there's an eyeball right here, and on the opposite side there's an eyeball right here. They are not the same size or shape. Let's see if I can do it without getting too much. Yeah, you can see me. Okay, start from the outside and work inside, work my way out. Do a little bit from one side. Turn it over and look at it, see what it looks like. This takes some steady hands. I will admit that when my hands gets too steady, Tekla's going to have to take over for me because I won't be able to paint them. Alright, we've got one eyeball. And it don't look too bad, does it? Let me do that other one. I always do the opposite one first because I got to turn this upside down. And then when I come around here, I can see how it is and I can paint this other side right side up. So I always like to do that way because I don't want to screw up the good side or screw up the bad side and then have to make the good side match it. That's what I'm doing is making sure both sides, I can do one side first, the hardest one, and then if I got to make it match, I make the harder side first and then make the easier side to match. Alright. I got him looking this way. Got him looking that way. Okay. I think I'm okay, but I think I see a little spot there. Now I got a missing spot. See what I'm saying? You got a little bitty brush and a little bitty thing. It's gonna, I picked up a set of these little cheaters I have that go right on your hat or right on your glasses, and I picked them up this morning, put them back on the shelf, and then didn't get them out. Anyway, I'm gonna set that aside because I need that for highlight later, but I like his eyes. I think they're turning out okay, and I'm off the camera. Pardon me. All right, about 15 seconds of hairdryer heat, so hang on. Sorry, I believe I went a little bit longer than I'd said, but I wanted to make sure I got those eyes nice and dry because nothing's worse than screwing up eyes that you got to cut out again or fix or whatever. I hadn't pulled out a color here. What I want to do is I want to look at a color called Traditional Burnt Umber. That's not it. That's it right there. That's burnt umber. That ain't what I'm looking. Man, I need to relabel my stuff. There it is. It's written on top. I don't know why I couldn't see it. Traditional burnt umber. It's a good mix between black and brown, black and dark brown. And what I'm going to do is that's what I'm going to do the underlaying of the eyes. So I want to do a little circle. I want to circle here, and I want to circle here. And they don't need to be great big circles, but they need to be big enough because he's looking this way. That's where his eyeball is going to be located. I'm going to put a dot right out there and right out there at the edge. I want to make sure that when I go to paint them, they're straight across this way, they're not up and down, and they're in the right spot. And I think that looks pretty good if I had to look at it better. Okay, here we go. Here's the big jump off. I'm going to paint the upside down one first, like I said earlier, because I want to make sure I don't screw it up. Because if I do, it's easier to fix it. It's easier to make the other one match this one than this one to match that one. You may have found a little bit of different experience, but that's been my experience, and that's all I can talk about. Because I can't talk about anybody else's experience. That's their story, not mine. So if I was telling their story, I might not tell it right. So I'm going to tell you mine because I know that. I lived that. This one's a little bit smaller, so I'm going to just make him a little titch bigger. You can tell I'm tired because you can hear it in my voice. My voice gets more southerny the tireder I get. I like these eyes. Focus. I like those. Now, I'm going to take that same color and I'm going to use this same brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of paint, and what I want to do, let me get a pencil and draw it out for you. What I want to do is, here's the eye. Daggone, I keep moving around. There we go. Here's the eye right here. We got a okay, and we got a tear duct right here. So what I want to do is I put an eyeball out here somewhere around here like this. He's a little colored there. Got to put a little color on him. And then I want to come back with a traditional burnt umber, and I want to get a thinnest slice of shadow right up under there. I want that to go all the way down to the tear duct. I want it to be a seamless color right all the way down here. That's the shadow. You don't see much of a shadow here unless you're looking down at the eyeball, but here you're going to see that right there. So I'm going to be uber careful in just getting a little bit of paint on there, just all I need, the last quarter of it. And I'm going to start, I usually like to start here, but I can't get my hand under there very well. So I'm just going to go to the top of that eyeball and drag it right along that white part. Can you see that shadow there? I want to find out where I'm at. Can you see that shadow right there along the upper part of that eyelid? I want to do that because I want the shadow to show top of his eyeball. I need a little bit more paint. Take that off. Gotta have good eyes right in here. If you don't, buy you some cheaters. Otherwise, you'll do like I do when my eyes are tired. Sometimes I have to paint it 2 or 3 times. I don't like doing that, but that's sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Anyway, I've done that for both of them. I want to dry that off real quick because I want some color and then a white dot on there. And I don't know what color I want, so I'm going to just reach over here and just kind of, I like this raw sienna. Let's see if we can't get a good little lick of raw sienna up on there. Well, wouldn't you know it? I go to get it, and this lid is full of dried paint, so I'm going to take that off of there. Just like that. Come out of there. In the garbage you go. Wipe my finger off. I don't want to transfer that paint over to the carving. And then what I'm going to do is shut that and shake it, and that'll get enough up there in the lid. Enough up there in the lid to get some color there. There we go. See, that's what I want. I want that pure color. And I'm just going to give him a little eyeball right in the middle. It ain't real big, and I don't need to be real big. And on a head this small, you know what? I better dry that. Give me a second. Nothing worse on your painting your eyes is runny paint. Okay, I'm going right in here to the eyeball, and I'm just going to almost get rid of that whole dark circle, the underpinning that I put there. I want this going almost all the way out to the edges on both eyeballs. So now you come over here. Now I see a little bit of there on the bottom I got to reach to. All right, same thing. This is a little bit more open because I'm open over this side of the head. So I'm going right in there. I'm just touching that in there. If the paint is wet, sometimes it'll flow. And you don't have to do much more than just touch it to the thing and let it flow to where it needs to go. Okay, so now I got the eyes where I want them. Where am I at? And then I'm going to come with a little dot, a white dot right up here in the corner. I just happen to have a toothpick left over from lunch. I used one end, I didn't use the other, so don't worry about me being a little dirty. But I'm going to get a little bit of white here. Let me clean the top of that one off too, because it's all gummed up here at the top. And I don't want it all there. Gets everywhere. So, all right. Now, right there is a little, and that's not enough. Just a little bit more in there because I don't need much. I need a drop. And in fact, I need about 1/10 of a drop. Okay, find the sharp point of your toothpick. Get it wet just on the end. Don't have it down the edge. Come back in here and boom. Come back in here and just real carefully, boom. Camera may not be able to pick it up. I hope it does. See those little white dots there in the upper right corners? That's what I want. That's exactly what I wanted when I went to do this. All right, a little dry here. I'm going to dry the eyes. I think this thing's going to come out and turn out pretty good. If I do say so myself. I left myself room on the back to sign it, so everybody knows they're getting a carving from Owens. The last thing I'm going to do, find an empty well in my palette here. Get rid of this little brush, put that lid back on it, otherwise it'll get screwed up. And I'm going to put a little bit of buttermilk in here. I don't know if you've ever used buttermilk or if you've never done dry brushing, but you don't need much. You need a drop or two. And you need, what I use is usually a stiff brush. Because what I want to do is I want that to just, as I go across, I want it just to pick up the tops of that facet. So I've heard people say you got to have one like this. Okay, well, the problem I do with this is it's so big, and I know there are smaller ones out there, let's see what that does. I want to get it in there, and I'm going to dab that in there because you can see all that paint there. That paint's going to be gone about now, and I'm pushing it down into the fibers, and so as I come out, I see it get less and less, and then as I get to the end, there's not a whole lot of paint left there. And I'm going to go across. See how it picked up there at the top? Get out here where you can see, apologize. But sometimes these big brushes sometimes pick up more than I want. So I don't use them very much because I'm going, and as I turn, this is hitting one side of the brush, over here it's hitting another side of the brush, and I didn't see that it all was, see there? Take and rub it with your finger. That way you can get it out of there, and you can smooth that out. I don't want any harsh lines here of paint. Anything that I do today, nothing should be harshly painted. When I do this, it's okay to use the big brush on these big wide facets, but when I get down to do the eyebrows, or I get down to do the sideburns, I gotta switch to a smaller brush, because if not, I'm going to end up with way too much paint in way too many places, and way not what I want. So it'll end up, this just makes it look dusty and not brand new. Okay. Alright, I'm going to rinse that real quick. Remember to rinse your brushes all the time, because if you leave any paint in them, it's just going to ruin them. Now, I'm not a big fan of buying expensive paints. Or paint brushes either, but I don't want to buy them every time I go to paint either. Alright, I'm going to find a smaller version of that brush that I can use to get under those, right around those eyelids, do those eyebrows, and do the sideburns. So I'm going to grab a small one like this. You know what? I'm not going to grab that one. I'm going to grab this one. This one looks better. I'm going to get a little bit of paint in there, and I'm going to take it off again. This one I'm going to leave a little more because that's more of a script liner brush, and so it's long and skinny. It holds a lot of paint, but not in any one spot. Right over the top of those those eyebrows. You see that? Right over the top of that, and right over the top of this sideburn. I don't need a whole lot. I need enough so you get the idea, but I don't need a whole lot. So these liner brushes carry a lot of paint, but you got to get it down into the brushes, or otherwise it just sits on the outside, and then you're toast when it comes to putting that on there. Little spot right there, I got too much paint. Just one of the things we used to talk about in geology. Did you lick it? It helps you to identify some rocks. If it's salty, guess what it is? It's a salty rock. Anyway, eyebrows are done. Sideburns are done, I think. Yep, right there. Back of the hair is done. This cowboy's finished, I believe. I'll take a few pictures of him and put him up on my website. When I'm done painting, I use a series of, sometimes, a choice of what kind of finish I want. And so for a long time I did boiled linseed oil and burnt ember and wax and white coat and stuff. And so now, after experimentation and ruining a few things, I use Minwax for the most part. And I use the semi-gloss because I want it to be shiny in a little few areas, and I don't want it to be shiny in other areas. I certainly don't use gloss very often, and usually when I do, it means I'm going to paint over top of it. I want the gloss to have a little sheen to it, and I'm going to paint over that, and that sheen shines through. But this Minwax polyurethane, fast drying, they make a warm satin, no shine. Make a warm semi-gloss, a little bit of shine, and then they make a gloss, which gives you a lot of shine. I like it, semi-gloss or satin. I've done it a few times with lacquer, and it gives me a good-looking color, a good-looking finish too. But this stuff works because it's going to resist, you know, the oil from your hands, from people holding it, people touching it, people getting dust. You can blow the dust off, or take a dry brush and just come by and just dry brush it off. But this little guy will sit inside your bottles or your beer bottle or whatever. So you go to give him to somebody, and he fits right in there. I hope you like this project. On the next project that we're doing on my Zoom class, we'll be doing my first date guy. You can see him on my website. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm Eric Owens Carving on Facebook. I'm Eric Owens Carver on Instagram. EricOwensArt.com on my website. EricOwensArt@gmail.com. And you can find me through the Idaho Wood Carvers and the Idaho Artistry and Wood, and it's in several other places. But I just opened up another page for those who attend my Zoom class. They can share their finished products on that one too. So I hope you stay along for the ride and we have a long relationship with each other. I'd love to see you around the carving table. If your club wants a carver to come in and teach a class or 2 or 3, call me up and I'll be glad to talk to you about it. It's been fun on this, and I like doing cowboys, and I certainly like doing bottle stoppers. Go watch the other 4 videos, come back and paint, have a good time, and show off your stuff. Don't forget to sign it. I'll see you around the carving table. Thank you.